Hey guys, we're back, and today we're working on a 2014 Jeep Cherokee, and we're going to work on the rear brakes on this bad boy. And I apologize for the noise. It's raining, and I got a metal roof on my shop here, so it might be a little bit noisy. But we've already got the wheel off, we already got the jack and everything set up. And if you don't know how to do that stuff, I'd encourage you to watch some of our other videos. We outline all that stuff. I didn't want to bore everybody today. But what you got here is you got a pin right here. It's called a pin, but it's a bolt. And in this case, on this vehicle, it is a 10 millimeter, which a lot of these vehicles you could pretty much disassemble and reassemble just using a 10 millimeter socket or a wrench. It's kind of amazing. But the first thing we want to do is bust those loose. So we'll get this one loose down here. Alright, now if you're looking, you can see that's spinning. So I'm going to have to grab a wrench to get on that, to hold that bad boy still. I'll be right back. Alright, so put a wrench on right here. You can see there's that little nut. So I had to put a wrench on there and then loosened up the rest of the way. So I got that one completely off. And now this one, it's got a bracket. And the bracket is holding the brake line. Alright, I better put that pin back in, just to hold everything in place. See? Tell you what, man, you know, sometimes people think, oh, you got to be perfect to do this stuff. No, you just got to have the perseverance to do this stuff, because a lot of times, you know, even the guys who are professionals will make little mistakes like that. But I just got to loosen this up. It's holding the brake line. So there's a bracket on the end of this nut. So first we got to take the nut off, get the bracket out. So there's a little nut there, and now this little bracket will slide off and out of the way. Alright, so we'll pull that back, and now we'll get on this. Hopefully I can still get my socket in there. I might have to go to a wrench. There we go. And we'll just pop that loose. Oh, same problem, so we'll put a nut, I'll put a wrench on this nut and then pull that pin out. Alright, well, I'm having a problem here, which is that I don't have a set of wrenches that are thin enough. I've got some good quality stuff, but I don't have a wrench that's thin enough to get on that little nut there, because it's got this big bad washer on here. So I ended up using a pair of vice grips, which I hate because it's so easy to mangle stuff. But I'm just putting enough pressure on there to keep that from spinning so that I can unthread that bolt. And then we'll be good to go. So on the bottom one, it's just a bolt like this. And you can see that that's just a regular bolt. But on the top one, the bolt looks really like that. It's got this extra set of threads, and that's where the bracket was attached with this nut. So on the back, first I had to take the nut off, slide the bracket, this guy, out of the way, and then attach my socket and disassemble. And there we go. Alright, so now the caliper will slide right off. Alright, now make sure you put this bad boy somewhere where it's not going to drop on your fingers and where it's not going to be resting on the hoses, because nothing will screw up hoses faster than that. So now I got these pads, and very often with these you're going to need a screwdriver, which I do, to pull them loose. And you got to be careful what you're prying against, because heaven knows you don't want to mess up your discs. These discs on this vehicle are in great condition. There's no reason to be messing them up. So we just got to work this guy loose here and pry it from its seat. There it goes. There we are. Now you can see this pad is pretty badly worn, but that's just some mangling from my screwdriver there. But you can see it's also not in real bad shape. A little bit of heat crazing right there, which might indicate a problem potentially with the caliper. We might need to be watching that. But beyond that, the disc looks good. It's nice and smooth. A little bit of rust at the top, but the pad isn't going to come in contact with that, so it'll be fine. So we want to go ahead, we're going to remove these metal races here, these little guides, and we'll go ahead and get the new pads installed. So I'm going to remove the one on the back exactly like this. I'll just work that loose, slide it right out. Alright, what I want to show you here real quick is what I try and do is, so here's the old pad I just pulled off, and I'm looking at the back side on purpose, because I want to find a pad that is oriented the same way to make sure that I put the new pads in the right places. So you can see that this one's got the screech little arm here, the noise maker, the squeal maker, and this one's got it in the same place. So that's the one that's on the back, on the piston side. And then this is the one that was on the outside, and this one's got the screech pad on the other side. Now what's odd to me, and you don't see this very often, is it's got 4. Each pad has its own little squealer. I guess they realize that these ones do occasionally wear unevenly, and that way you get alerted to the problem before it becomes a big issue. But we're going to make sure that we orient these the same way as they were originally, because you know, it came that way from the factory, and so we're going to put it back the way it was. Alright, so now we want to change these little slider clips here, and so they just, it's a press fit, and they've got little springs on there to hold them in place. So I just lift that out, I use a screwdriver, and then I like to clean them up, make sure that it's clean surface and no rust or, you know, grit, grime, you know, there's all kinds of yak that can get in behind there. So I just like to clean them up and make sure that we got a good clean surface for it to go to. And then I find another clip that matches, fits the same way, and we'll just slide it into the same place. And as with anything, saying, oh, we'll just slide it right in is always easier than actually doing it. You got to get the placement right and make sure you've got it pressed in. But there we go. And it just presses right in there. And now we just do the same thing on the other side. So again, just a little bit of force with the screwdriver. It doesn't take a whole lot. We'll pop that right out. Find a clip that matches. Again, you want to make sure that the one that you're putting in is a direct replacement for the one that you pull out. So, like if we look at this one, we can see that it's oriented the same way. You'll also see there's a clip missing on the inside of this one. There's a little piece missing there that is on here, but that's the right one. And so, again, clean that up. Doesn't take that much effort. Make sure that all the gunk and goop is out of there. And then we just press that bad boy right into place. Same as we did on the other side. Sometimes you might need to use a little tap with a hammer. As much as I can, I try to avoid impact tools for that, because you know, it shouldn't take that much effort to put that in there. And if it does, then maybe it's not the right piece. But you can see those pressed right into place and they're ready to go. So now all we need to do, I'll do the same thing on the back. I'll replace those same clips. And then these guys just slide right in place where the other one was. Alright, so I've got the back one in, and it was a little bit of an exercise because it's a little hard to see what you're doing back there. But this is the one that's going to go in the front. So what you got to do is you got to get it behind that little clip right there. It's got to go behind that, on top of this clip here, behind that little clip there, on top of that little clip there, and you got to line the whole mess up and then slide it into place like that. And that's what both sides look like. And now we're ready to push back the caliper. So let's do that next. Alright, so what we want to do, we got to retract this cylinder back into the cylinder head here. And so on a vehicle like this, it's a little trickier. Now you can buy specialty tools to do this job. I'm going to show you how to do it without it. And what you do, you're using a big C-clamp. Now be gentle, because this has got a plastic housing for your analog brakes over here. But you want to compress that just a little bit, and then take a big pair of channel locks, a big pair of pliers, and put them just on that metal cylinder right there, and then just twist that clockwise And what's going to happen is it's going to recede back into the cylinder head, and then it's going to loosen up the pressure on the clamp. And when it starts to loosen up, first of all, it's a good sign. You can see the rubber is starting to compress. But when it starts to, just tighten it up just a little bit, just a little on the clamp there. Just enough to keep the pressure. And then continue to turn it clockwise. And you're just going to keep doing that until it completely seats. And you can see it's working its way back in. And again, I'm tightening up the clamp. Hard to see on the video because I got the video trying to capture everything here. But when you see my hand move over that way, I'm turning the clamp to tighten it. And I just only grabbing the metal part. Don't grab the rubber. That's a boot to keep the dirt out, and you'll tear it. But try your best to keep that clamp centered up, and then just keep that pressure on there to help push that cylinder back in. And it's just a continued back and forth motion, and you work this cylinder all the way back in. You got to compress it all the way back so you can get it over the top of your new, improved, thicker shoes that you just put on there, your new pads for your brakes. And so we just keep doing that back and forth. I'm not going to waste your time by doing it all the way back, but hopefully you can see that the rubber is compressing. So I just spin it back slow and gentle. It doesn't take a lot of force here. You can see that the rubber is starting to bunch up over there, and that's good. It's supposed to do that. We'll tighten this up, continue to push that back, and we just continue that until this piece is completely seated, and that's going to allow us to put the caliper back on the vehicle. Alright, so we've got that cylinder compressed back in. You can see the rubber's completely back inside the housing. The metal's sticking out, but that's enough. That's all we need to do. So now we bring it back. We got these two tabs, top and bottom, one here, one there. And we slide this whole assembly down over the top of the pads and realign the two tabs so they're in front of the two bolts that we took out earlier. So remember the one with the weird thing on the top? That is the top one. So slide that in. And sometimes you got to work a little bit to get it to line up with the nut inside. There it goes. Put our two guide pins back in for the calipers. And tighten her all back down. When you go to put this back on with brand new pads on there, the first time you hit the brakes, the pedal might go like to the floor. So make sure that you're doing it somewhere where you don't have to worry about hitting something if you can help it. Doing it right on the floor in your garage before you even put it in gear is your best idea, because otherwise you might find yourself rolling and you panic because the brakes aren't working. The brakes are fine, but you just got to give it time for that fluid to push that cylinder back out and compress on there so that it's right where it should be. Right now, the first time he presses on this, it's got that little play in there. It's designed to be there. But the first time he presses on that pedal, the pedal's going to go down. And that might freak you out if you're not prepared for it. So make sure you're looking for that. And then we just tighten up those two 13mm bolts. You can check those with a torque wrench if you like. But there you go. You're ready to go. Put your wheel back on. Get the bad boy down off the jacks and jack stands. And you're good to go. Hey, you guys be safe out there. Remember, above all, we want to see you going home in one piece.